Coming up tonight on Sports Extra, could it have been any busier of a week in Atlanta sports? I mean, my goodness, we had the Falcons clean house. Matt Ryan gets hired. Search is underway for both a new head coach and general manager. Oh, and then the Hawks went and traded Trae Young. What is going on? Can we just chill out for a second?
Great teammate, one of the smartest guys I was ever around. Just as likely to scream at you on the field as buy you a beer afterwards.
Oh, man, I loved it, man. I enjoyed it. I mean, for me, going there as a 19, 20-year-old, it was a dream come true being able to be drafted there.
Man, take a deep breath, everybody. What a week we've had, and let's hope nothing else happens during the show. But if it does, remember, we got you covered just like we do every single Sunday. Sports Extra, it's a big one, starts now. I can already tell you guys this is going to be a very entertaining show because we have ESPN's Marc Raimondi already trying to get Jarvis Davis to start wrestling.
Yes.
That's
the real stuff, the professional wrestling, like WWE, not that fake stuff they do in the Olympics.
Yeah, man, I'm ready to cut me a promo, man. Come on, man, sign me up. Stop playing around with these people, man. I'm ready to make my debut, baby.
Jarvis is going to put me through this table before the end of the show.
Oh, yes. Okay, well, I don't know if that's going to happen. Maybe I'll be surprised. That could be a new segment that I'm unaware of. By the way, you mentioned the Olympics. It's right here on 11 Alive. It's coming up in February. So great plug there, Jarvis.
What a segue.
Great job. Yes. Okay, Jarvis Davis on the far end from all things Locked On Falcons. You're also doing Georgia Tech as well. And Marc Raimondi from ESPN, Falcons only, and the all-knower of everything Falcons. Marc, I want to start with you because you're in that facility all the time. Mm-hmm. You know who else is going to return to that facility on a regular basis? Matt Ryan. He gets named the president of football for the Atlanta Falcons. What do you think of this move by this organization?
I think if you go back to the last time the Falcons were successful, who was the most prominent part, the face of that team? Yeah. It was Matt Ryan. And I like the idea of going back to what worked before. You have a guy that Arthur Blank trusts implicitly. You have a guy who, beyond everything else, beyond even the expertise for the job, we know one thing about him. He lives and breathes the Atlanta Falcons. He lives and breathes the city. He's done so much for the city, and that alone makes him a great candidate just because you know that he's going to do his very best, and he's a guy that you can rely on because he's Matt Ryan. He's Matty Ice.
Yeah, when you think about the Atlanta Falcons, you do think of Matt 100%. Ryan. He's the first person that comes to mind, and he has high expectations for everyone around him, which is why I think he's going to become a very good president. Jarvis, what do you think will make him a great president?
The attention to detail, because to have success in playing the quarterback position in the National Football League is just, it takes so much work. It's probably one of the hardest, most stressful positions that you can actually take in the United States of America when you actually think about it, because I think that Matt is an excellent guy there for this spot because of those reasons, because I feel like when you talk about the structure and how the general manager and the head coach have to report to him, I feel like it's great because Matt can understand the language that they're speaking, and you can't be sold on certain things, because we talked about how Arthur Blank was saying how, great Raheem Morris was in the interview, because Raheem Morris is an excellent salesman. Like have a conversation with him, you're like, oh my God, that was such an impressive guy. But Matt can weed all the fluff out and say, hey, what are you going to do? What is the offensive scheme going to be? If you go on a 6-game losing streak, okay, what are you going to be able to do to get this bad boy turned around before it all starts to fall to crap? So yeah, I think that's one of the things that I feel like Matt is going to do a good job of going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's a new role for him. He's never been in the front office before. Obviously, that's a big transition from playing on the football field to never having experience in doing this role. However, it's not an anomaly. You have guys that have done this before in the National Football League. I think of Ryan Poles, who's there in Chicago. Look at what the Bears have done. Oh, and by the way, Matt and Ryan are best friends. So he's leaning on Ryan Poles a lot. They were teammates at Boston College. They're buddies. Does this make sense, bringing a former player into the front office, Marc, when they've never had that before?
It makes sense because it's Matt Ryan, right? It's not just any old player.
You're saying it wouldn't work with somebody else, but Matt, it kind of does.
I mean, it's Matt Ryan because he was not the general manager or the coach when he was the player, but for 14 years, he was the leader of this team and this franchise, right? Yeah. So he has that experience. But on top of that, Maria, I think also he's a smart and savvy enough guy to know what he doesn't know, to understand that he is experienced and he will lean on the people that do know, and that's going to be a big part of this process now that they're in where they're searching for a GM and a new head coach. And I think him being at the lead of those processes is key, because he's going to bring in the people that he thinks are going to be able to help him the most as well for what he's doing.
Admitting what you don't know is one of the smartest things you can do as a human being. Matt does that a lot, and I think he's going to be fantastic as a president. Obviously, this is a restructuring of a lot of different things. Rich McKay, who has been at the forefront of a lot of decisions for many, many years. He was the CEO. Now he is leaving the football part of things. Remember, he will continue with AMBSC, Jarvis. But the fact that he's getting moved out of the front office with this organization, he and Arthur Blank have a very rich history of being bonded together. This is a move that a lot of people felt like needed to be made. What did you think about getting Rich McKay out of this position?
I think that he's kind of already been out of this position, but I think that there is someone in that place that can take a place of being Arthur's right-hand man, or being the guy to help Arthur make those final decisions, and being that go between the head coach and the general manager. And I think that, I'm totally fine with that, because obviously Rich had a lot of pull with Raheem Morris potentially being hired as the head coach for this team. So I think that it was the right time to get someone in his place, when to kind of replace him from a football operation standpoint.
Yeah, don't forget Greg Beatles will still be in this as well. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add that this is my second year here in Atlanta covering the Falcons, and I do find it interesting that Rich McKay is like the boogeyman for Falcons fans, for whatever reason.
For sure.
Yeah. And I have yet to kind of see like the evidence as to why that might be. But I feel like Falcons fans, like, they wake up, they stub their toe. Rich McKay again. I mean, can we give it a rest a little bit? Like, there's other people in those rooms making those decisions. That it's not just Rich McKay. So I mean, I just find that very interesting, that whenever something bad happens, that damn Rich McKay, the boogeyman.
No, you're right. And I think Falcons fans have felt that for a very long time. They do blame him for a majority of different things that have gone wrong, but ultimately Rich will still be a part of AMBSC. As I mentioned, he's going to focus on World Cup and flag football and all the other important things that he was doing. Now, we have talked ad nauseum about Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot getting let go. It feels like a lifetime ago. It was literally 7 days ago, last Sunday, after that final game of the season. Arthur Blank talked for a very long time, Marc, about the decision to let both of those men go. Why do you think ultimately they did lose their jobs last Sunday?
They haven't put together winning seasons. I mean, ultimately that's really what it's all about in the NFL, right? Yeah. Terry Fontenot did not put forth a winning team over 5 seasons.
Yeah.
That's five seasons is a decent amount of time, as a general manager to build the team, and they were not able to win and go to the playoffs. And then the Falcons have not as a franchise in 8 years. And a change, needs to be made if you feel that way, if you're so inclined by the owner. And as far as Raheem Morris, it was only his second year, and you can certainly say, hey, maybe you can give Raheem Morris one more year to see if he can figure it out. But you also kind of, and they haven't done this the last couple of times, but you also kind of want that cohesion and that synergy, which is a great corporate buzzword that really doesn't mean a whole lot. But you kind of want to hire the head coach and the GM kind of at the same time, so they can share a vision. And that was the big word, talking about buzzwords, like when Arthur Blank spoke on Thursday, one of the things that he said, that Sportsology, this firm that basically went in and audited, I guess, the football operations of the Falcons, is that there was no clear vision of what the team and the organization should do and be. Yeah. And if you don't see a vision of what it is, you need to make a change. Yeah, it's a results-based league, as we know, and also when there is no clear future or vision for the future, things are going to happen, as in people lose their jobs, unfortunately. But we will be talking about who will replace these guys coming up in just a little bit. But first, I didn't think we'd be talking about this, at least this early in the season, but the Trae Young era, it has come to an end. A former Hawks exec joins the show, and Jarvis does as well. We're going to break down what this trade actually means for the franchise.
It was a dream come true, and I'm happy that I had that. I felt like I needed that to be where I'm at today. And going forward, I think that everything that I learned there is just going to make me the better player and the better person I need to be for this organization going forward. And I'm just so thankful and for my time there. But I'm excited about this next one.
Can't believe this is real. On Friday, the Hawks traded the face of their franchise to the Wizards in exchange for C.J. McCollum and Corey Kispert. And Jarvis is back with me now. Trae Young's been a part of trade speculation for years. It feels like every single year his name is linked to some kind of a trade. Why was now the right time?
Because when you think about what Trae has done and how they've been kind of searching for, like that, we talked about the Falcons, we're talking about vision and clarity and where we're going as an organization. I think that you had to make this move right now because that's the only way it's going to be clear for you. Because you can say, oh yeah, all we got to do is add some guys with size and to get around Trae and we can be better defensively, but you're not necessarily going to really get an answer to that until he's not here anymore. So I think it was the right time, and it's clear that honestly, Soleil wants to be able to have some direction with this organization, which I'm totally fine with.
Yeah, they've been shifting in a different direction for quite some time, and clearly Trae never really fell into the mix of that. What do you think his legacy should be here in Atlanta?
I think Trae is a guy that should be recognized as the guy to embrace the city and really and understand the culture that's here. And when he came here, some people were upset, because they traded away Luka Doncic, but he was a guy that came in. He was the villain. He had the times with the New York Knicks. So I absolutely love that. I love him embracing that role. So yeah, Trae should be remembered as a guy. Hey, he was probably about an ankle sprain away from making it to the NBA Finals and potentially winning an NBA championship out of nowhere. And he was a guy that embraced the city, and I think that Atlanta fans should appreciate him for that.
If he did not step on that ref's foot, man, we could be talking about an NBA championship, or at least visitation to the NBA championship. Real quick, why do you think it didn't work out here with Trae?
I think, for those reasons, right? Like you had that run and then you were never able to build off of that. And then you had different structures and people behind the scenes pulling strings, or people that were different from the people that were actually in position to make those decisions. So yeah, I think it was ultimately lack of clarity, lack of vision, and he wasn't a part of the plan going forward.
All right, we'll see what happens when the Wizards come here in February, how the fans will receive Trae. But I did talk to a former Hawks executive all about Trae Young's legacy. Here it is. Continue our Trae coverage right now. Let's bring in an expert on the matter. Former Atlanta Hawks Vice President of Basketball Operations, now NBA on NBC Insider, and the man that knows everything about basketball, Mr. Grant Liftman. Grant, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I appreciate being here. It's going to be fun.
You needed a Los Angeles size intro is what I was trying to do. But what was your initial reaction to the Trae trade news when you heard that this was finally happening? He was shipping out of Atlanta for the first time in 7.5 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a monumental moment, obviously, for Atlanta sports, and he's just been a figurehead of everything Hawks, right, for that many years. But to be fair, the writing has been on the wall, especially since the offseason when he was not extended, and there really was no discussion of extending him. And it really was one of those question marks of, could he make it work with the new era of basketball that's happening, with the players they acquired? Could he be part of that next cycle of Hawks basketball? To be fair to him, also, like, the injury didn't help anything, right? Missing time, so he wasn't able to assimilate as much into the group. But at the same time, when he was out there, you could just tell it didn't mesh. It wasn't clicking the right way.
Yeah, it's shocking when your franchise player moves on, for sure. That's the biggest thing that we're trying to wrap our heads around is what's next for the Hawks? What do you think a move like this actually signals for the future of that organization?
Looking forward now is, what do you build around the team that's already there? Jalen Johnson's having an all-star type year. Nickeil Alexander-Walker's played great. Dyson Daniels now under contract. You have Onyeka under contract and Zachary Risachet, who is the first overall pick. So you have a lot of bones that are really good for the team. So what do you need to add to keep on getting better? And really it comes down to, without Trae, there is no primary playmaker. Right now, they have a lot of secondary great playmakers, Jalen Johnson and Dyson. These guys can really, if a second unit, a ball in their hands, but really it's a primary guy, a guy that really set the offense, get it going, a guy who can bring up the ball up the court without any fears of turnovers in the backcourt, a guy who can create for himself a little bit. That would be something that they should get, but it's hard, right? You have to find the right guy. You can't just pick anyone. And then also just some rim defense. They were hoping Kristaps Porzingis this year was going to be that for them. It has not worked out so far for a multitude of reasons. So really, can they bring in somebody that solidifies that defense? Because this team has a chance to be a really good defensive team with their point attack defense and their wing defense.
Grant, you said something really interesting here, because a lot of people look at Jalen Johnson and they think that now he's the number one. He is the future. He is the face. He is everything that is Atlanta Hawks. Why do you think they also need someone else in addition to that?
You know, Jalen Johnson is one of these guys that can do it all, right? He can rebound, he can assist, he can score. He has so many different facets to his game. But sometimes a Swiss Army knife isn't your primary guy. Really, at the end of the day, you still need somebody that can just have the ball in his hands and create. And it's not as much what we're talking about with Trae Young, where it was like he dominated the ball, but you need someone to initiate offense, who can get into the paint, drive, and initiate.
Let's wrap things up with Trae really quickly. He goes to the Washington Wizards, and a lot of people are looking at this move and saying, what the heck? Why does this make sense? Why do you think Trae going to Washington ultimately made sense at this moment in time?
From the Washington perspective, it makes sense because for them, they actually, and this is a funny part of the CBA that people don't really know as much, you actually have to hit a salary floor. And the team didn't have enough contracts going into next year because CJ McCollum, who the Hawks acquired, was going to be an expiring contract. So they could have either re-signed CJ to a big number, they could have tried to find somebody to come and pay them, or what you can do is just find the guy right now, Trae Young, try to revitalize his career, try to see if he can either build with you or maybe even just make him into more of an asset so another team comes get him. All those things help the Washington Wizards moving forward. They also, in the process, Corey Kispert, who came over to the Hawks, some may say that maybe he is a good player that fits with the Hawks, but also his contract didn't necessarily vibe with whatever the Washington Wizards are doing. And I'm not sure if it even fits exactly what the Hawks are doing, to be honest with you. He's a good player, but that money is significant over the next few years. So a lot of it is just salaries and how they're going about their CBA's construction. But at the end of the day, also, what a cool risk to take is just getting Trae Young to be with your team and try to, play some inspirational basketball.
It's going to be weird to see him in a Wizards uniform. We got to get used to that. But they do come to State Farm Arena in February, so hopefully Trae gets that standing ovation that he so rightfully deserves. Grant, thank you so much. Appreciate your insight as always.
Thanks for having me.
As we sit here right now, and I'm praying that this does not change, okay? The Falcons have completed interviews with 4 coaches for their head coaching vacancy. I know, time me.
Check my notifications.
SOS, we're scared over here. Kevin Stefanski, Aiden Dirty, Clint Kubiak, and Anthony Weaver. I'd imagine there's going to be a couple more interviews here before they land on someone. But Jarvis, who do you think ultimately will make sense as the head coach?
I want to necessarily not go with a name, but I think what makes sense is an offensive-minded coach, because here's the thing. One of the things that you have to get right in NFL is that you got to get the quarterback situation right. You have one, but you don't necessarily know if he's going to be the guy moving forward. So I feel like an offensive-minded coach, preferably somebody who's going to want to call plays, and then you bring in a nice quarterback coach to kind of get those guys in sync to work with Penix. So I think that'll be the thing. That would be an ideal candidate for me, a guy that on the offensive side of the football.
Marc, quick from you. What do you think?
I mean, I completely agree with what Jarvis said. I think that an offensive guy is, if you look at what's going on in the NFL and the way things are moving from a schematic and system standpoint, it's offense first, and that's just the way it is right now, and that might change in 5 years because that's how things go and evolve. But I think that you want a guy that can help Penix become the best version of Penix. And
now you have a president in the building who wore that very uniform. I think he's thinking offense. Just going to take a wild guess on that one. One of the things that was seismic in all of the news that we got was John Harbaugh getting let go from his job with the Ravens. After 18 seasons, he was there in Baltimore. So he's going to be one of the hottest coaches on this coaching carousel. A lot of people think the Falcons could be a real possibility for John. Marc, do you think that could be true?
I don't see it, honestly. I don't see that happening, and my reasoning is this. I think that John Harbaugh is a guy that is so firmly established as a head coach that if he's going to go somewhere, I think he's going to want to be the one to build a team around him, the GM, the personnel department. And the Falcons already have Matt Ryan in that spot as president of football. And they have not hired a GM yet, but we already know that the people that they've interviewed for this president of football role are probably also in the mix for the GM job.
Sure.
And John Harbaugh doesn't have a say in that. So if John Harbaugh is not going to interview until this coming week, the Falcons might have a GM by then, right? Or they might know who they want by then. So I don't see it happening. Doesn't mean it won't. I just don't know if it's the right fit at this moment.
And I've got a feeling that he's going to want to call the shots on literally everything, and he probably can for wherever he goes. He'll get whatever job he wants. We'll close very quickly with the fact that the Dallas Cowboys, they have a defensive coordinator opening. They wanted to interview Jeff Ulbrich. The Falcons said no, Jarvis. And Arthur Blank earlier in the week, he did say it is not going to be a requirement for the GM and head coach to keep Rick, but it will be a suggestion. What do you think about that thought process?
I think it makes sense because Jeff Ulbrich did a really good job with his defense this year. So for me, I look at it from the standpoint of, hey, if you get an opportunity to keep a good coach, you already have one right here. And when it comes to building out your staff, going back to the offensive-minded head coach, he might not have as many connections on the defense side of the football if he's going to be the head coach of the team. Like, you already got a guy who had success, and he has a lot of young pieces that he can continue to build with. So yeah, I don't have an issue at all with Arthur Blank making that suggestion.
I just hope ultimately it doesn't put Brick in a bad spot with getting a job, because I think that he should be employed, whether it's here or somewhere else. So we'll see what happens. Also, by the way, just to quickly update you, Zach Robinson has completed an interview with an NFC South foe, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, for their open offensive coordinator spot. We'll wrap things up with one more thing about the Falcons after the break. So if the Falcons would have made the playoffs, they would have played the Rams. Jarvis, do you think that if you switched the Panthers and the Falcons could have beat the Rams in this game?
Yeah, absolutely. Because here's the thing. It is hard to beat a team 3 times in one season. And plus, they beat them on Monday Night Football. So, yeah, I think as long as James Pierce and Jalen Walker were healthy, yeah, they would have had a shot.
Marc?
Why not? They did it
that's so
less
painful.
than 2 weeks ago. It was 13 days ago they won that game. Of course they could have won that game. Absolutely. They could have. The Falcons have proven, if anything, the last 2 seasons that they could beat anybody. They beat the Super Bowl champions last year.
I know.
The Philadelphia Eagles. And yeah, for sure, they could have beaten anyone, but they also could have lost to anyone this season, if we're being honest, right, guys? They could have.
What a shut
And they kind of did.
And it hurts the Falcons fans to hear all of that. But Falcons fans rejoice because Matt Ryan is now the president of football. We'll talk to him on Tuesday, and we'll keep you up to date on everything going on within the organization. Have a great week, everybody. See you next Sunday.